Welcome to Sports Overtime. We had a great week breaking down the biggest topics in sports on Southeast Sports Plus. Here's the best of. There is a path to victory. What do you think it is coming up on Tuesday?
They got to be lights out. They got to. I mean, Florida's big, and Texas lacks some punch inside. Traore hasn't played the last few games, so now you're talking about Vocatitis, who had a big game against Georgia. Nick Cody's played sparingly, but he's had to step up. Florida's so big. I don't know how Texas can slow them down on the front line, but they've got to, they got to hit 15 threes, and they got to stay out of foul trouble, and the margin is pretty small. Now it's a home game. They get hot like they did against LSU in that first half and get on a roll, and the crowd gets in it. And, Florida's not invincible, certainly. But it can be done. College basketball, we see it every night. We see it every week. But they're going to have to shoot lights out. And Sean Millard says, we're just not a good enough defensive team that we can lock teams down. So they're going to have to probably score in the high 80s or 90s to win on Wednesday.
I mean, it's definitely not out of the realm of possibility. I've been saying Moody Center, some crazy stuff does happen there all year.
It is a 6 o'clock start, and if you're familiar with Austin traffic, that's not ideal to get that place packed.
The late arriving crowd.
6 o'clock tip.
Yeah.
Well, if you've got late classes, the students aren't going to care. They're not going to go to class. They'll just go
the students can get there. I'm talking about
general fans,
customers, if you will.
Right. But speaking about this game, obviously you've got the other 3 games to end the year, but just from a hypothetical standpoint, with how good Florida has been playing as of late, if Texas wins this one, are they basically already a lock to make the tournament, and it doesn't really matter what happens in those final 3 games?
I would think. Again, like I said, that gets you to 500.
Yeah.
And they made it with 6 last year. Yeah. Now, the SEC was way different last year.
For sure.
Than this year, but there you see the closing stretch, and man, that's a tough closing stretch, and it looked a lot tougher, and then Oklahoma kind of became what they are, which is not as good as we thought, but A&M beat them here. They got a big bounce back win, and so Arkansas is going to be a tough place to play. They, as Sark said, Arkansas hates Texas more than they like themselves. Maybe that's not so true in 2026, but that place is going to be something else when Texas goes in there. So, and then you got the SEC tournament and what happens there. Before Saturday, I don't know now if it's realistic they could get the double bye, but they were in that fight, for the double bye. But there's so many teams. You could go from the double bye to, not even getting a bye. Right. Depending on how the cards fall.
I think the craziest part about some of these losses were the fact that they were some of Otega-Owe's best games of the season. And we had talked about on this show a few times, is Mark Pope mismanaging games? And we kind of came to the consensus of not really. But how refreshing was it to see Denzel Aberdeen step up on the road?
I mean, I think that's big. Again, teams now know. I mean, Otega's getting doubled most of the time, which is why I think he struggled a little bit at South Carolina. So that means your other role players have to step up. That's just the bottom line, and that's what's going to get them wins, which it did for Denzel. Also, one of the shaky things has been the bench production hasn't had much depth, and so it was nice to have Mo Diabate come out off the bench. He scored 12 points, was big on both sides of the floor, so that played a significant difference. But I think especially going into this postseason, everyone's scouting report's going to say guard Otega-Owe, double him, make his life as hard as possible. So it's going to make those other players, they are going to have to step up, especially if this team wants to go far in the SEC tournament and then, of course, the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. One of the kind of interesting things that happened over the weekend after the Auburn game was Mark Pope in his post-game press conference. He was doing everything to not step on the landmine of getting a fine from the NCAA. He would open every single question with, "I don't want to get fined," and then next thing you know, he's docked $25,000 because you could hear him complaining about the officiating in the corridor.
Yes.
And a lot of people who were doing this kind of dime store psychology were saying, well, that is indicative of this job getting to him and the losing streak and whatnot. How did you internalize this whole aspect of criticizing the officiating? Do you think he had a point, and what does it mean for his team moving forward?
Do I think he had a point? Yes. There were definitely some questionable calls, and to be fair, I think it's common knowledge maybe that Kentucky sometimes doesn't get a whistle. And so I think with the history of that and then going into the season, that's kind of been the storyline in a lot of games. So, yes, there were some questionable calls. However, I will say there were many things that Kentucky could have done in that game to win earlier on. I mean, they were up by 10 at one point, so you can't blame it all on the officiating. Yes, the call was questionable, but of course, I think it was funny in the press conference because he was like, I am not allowed to talk about the officials, but sometimes I think it's personal. So it's like he was contradicting himself. And then, of course, when the hot mic caught him talking to Mitch Barnhart in the hallway, there was just no way the SEC was going to let that fly.
Obviously, one of the big storylines coming into this game was the return of Duke Miles, and we were both in agreement that we thought he might be on a minutes restriction in his first game back. Yeah. How much of Tyler Tanner being sick do you think played an impact in how much Duke Miles played? Because I was kind of shocked at the minutes.
Yeah, I think he probably had to play more than they wanted him to. And he still wasn't. You could tell he wasn't fully integrated, right?
Right.
I mean, they were still feeling some stuff out. And Tanner has been such a dominant part of that basketball team. When he is, and that's not making an excuse. Tennessee made the shots they need to make to win the game. But, when you're talking about why did Duke Miles play more, obviously they would like to have gotten even more from Tyler Tanner because that's who he is. But in the end, does that make them better in March?
Right.
I mean, that's the bigger question. Does losing at Tennessee at home make them a better team when the bids come out?
Right.
I know we're going to talk about the women's team here in a second. Best thing that happened to them was that loss at South Carolina.
Absolutely.
I mean, when you see what Aubrey Galvin has been since that game, it's been unbelievable. So, losing is not the worst thing, and obviously you don't want it to be like the Lady Vols where the losses are piling up.
Right.
You want to be able to move on and learn from them. And I don't know how much more there is for this Vanderbilt team to learn. I think we're just seeing that they're a good team. They're not a great team.
Yes.
On the right day, they can play with anybody. And on the right day, they can get taken down.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll talk about the women, as you mentioned, on the other side of this soundbite. Here's Coach Mark Byington, both on what decided the game and Tyler Tanner.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams struggled to score in segments, and we had ours. The margin of error is very small in a game like this. It's hard to score against them. They do a great job there. So us not being, great on offense wasn't completely unexpected, but we missed opportunities. There was some shots there, some threes, some executions, some things, some missed looks that were there. And my guys will come right back, and the coaches will come right back, and we'll learn from it. We'll get better.
Stay with us here on Sports Overtime. And remember, you can watch our show, Southeast Sports Plus, from 2 to 4 o'clock on the free WKRG Plus app. You can find us on your Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV device. This is the last time we talked to you. Jackson Coiven has not only proven that he's the top college golfer in America, but went out and won the Gator Invitational over there in Florida. Given all the expectations that he had coming into the year as the #1 amateur, and to be able to execute the way he's doing early here in the spring, just how impressive has he been so far in your eyes?
He's played great. He's very motivated. He told me in January when he got back to school, he said, you're going to see a different Jackson Coiven this semester. And boy, has he lived up to that billing. In Hawaii, he kind of dominated, won by 5 shots in an elite field and shot, back-to-back 62s and broke Tiger Woods' record. And then won that tournament. Then he went over to the Gator and played very well, I think, for the first 27 holes and didn't have his best stuff the last 27, but hung in there and, winners win. And that's what he did.
He set the new Auburn golf wins record there with 7 in his junior year. Just how impressive is that for him to be able to set a new record like that, and he's not even a senior?
It's incredible, but that's kind of what motivates him. Like he's a guy that wants to be the #1 player in the world, period. Is that possible? Who knows? But he's going to work like crazy. He's going to have an elite mindset. He's going to be optimistic and positive. And, he checks all the boxes. He's He's an incredible young man, and he does everything right, and he loves the game, and he loves to compete. And I think if you put all that stuff together and you have some skill, then you're going to be highly successful, which he is.
No question about it. You also have another star golfer in Jake Albert, recognized as the SEC Freshman of the Week this past week. What have you seen from him early on, and what it takes for young guys to be successful?
He's a big boy. He's 6'3", about 210 pounds, and he's really improved his golf swing over the course of his freshman year, and he's a great putter. He's the next best putter on the team behind Jackson Coylan, and he's fearless. He's not afraid to make a bunch of birdies, and he shot 64 twice already. We played 6 competitive rounds this year in Hawaii and Gainesville, and shot 64 twice, and that's pretty damn good for a freshman. And we were really glad to sign him out of Blacksburg, Virginia, and he's lived up to the billing. So we're very pleased.
What is that dynamic like between having Jake, who is a freshman, and Jackson, who is the #1 amateur in the world?
They push each other, they're competing against each other. Of course, Jake and all the other guys are trying to learn from Jackson too, right? I always tell these freshmen, call him, text him, tell him we're going to go play 9 holes, bug him, because you only get this opportunity to play with, some of the best players. He's got a chance to be the next great American in Jackson Coylan, and why would you not want to go out and practice with him and play with him and just learn from him? Just like any sport, you're always trying to get better, and you're trying to learn from your peers.
For sure. And just taking a peek at the overall, there you see some of Albert's numbers, but taking a look at some of the overall golfers, that doesn't even include Josiah Gilbert, who we talked about the last time that we had you on, and he's a top 20 golfer in America. You talked about that competitive balance. Tell me a little bit about what it's like for you as a coach to be able to have all of these guys that are playing at a very high level, but then also being able to keep them in the right mind frame to stay where they are consistently.
Well, first off, we're very blessed to have these guys, right? I think that, Auburn University and our campus and our resources and facilities kind of help attract that. And then it's our job to make sure they get better and improve and have a blueprint, a plan of, where are they physically? Where are they mentally? Where are they emotionally? Where are they maturity-wise? And where's their social life at? Where's their spiritual life? And then trying to put all that together to give them a blueprint of how they're going to be successful, not only in golf, but life. And if we can do that and we just keep kind of trending up and we just take little baby steps and just keep stacking your chances, and that's kind of how I look at things. And if you just keep doing the little things right every day, you're going to stack your chances. And, guys like Jake Albert and Josiah Gilbert are going to keep getting better, and hopefully they could be a good pro one day. Just
how important was that just for the psyche of this basketball team, understanding, yes, they have some talent, but they're able to bounce back as well?
Yeah, getting a couple of good wins. I think those are teams they probably should beat if they want to be in the upper tier of this league, but they showed that they can beat those teams. And I think something that they've been really good about is winning on the road in those hostile environments. So to go in Norman, it's the second straight year they've taken down Oklahoma on the road. So a big, I think that was a confidence booster for this team. And they've showed that they can win these close games even after that 4-game skid, which I think maybe a lot of those in Aggie land were a little concerned that those close games aren't going their way anymore, but they kind of righted the wrongs these past 2.
So Gerhard made mention at the end as we were teasing you joining us, and obviously I had a pretty hot take of how I thought Texas A&M, and this is no disrespect, I was on the Texas A&M bandwagon to begin the year, but I'm a little bit hesitant. Like, if I were to be filling out my March Madness bracket right now, I'd be very hesitant to take them just because of the last 6 games. Do you think this is just a process of teams starting to figure out what Bucky McMillan is doing and trying to find a successful way to stop him? Or is this just the long and grueling grinds of being up and down in a season?
Yeah, I think, and this is kind of the same as every conference, you start to get a sense of who these teams are as you get further into SEC play, right? Like now teams aren't scoring in the 90s, they're scoring more in the 80s and sometimes in the 70s, as you saw against Oklahoma. So I think a lot of teams are starting to figure out just what buckyball is, but that's still not easy to game plan for. So I told you, I don't fault you for having any skepticism about the Aggies. Yeah. I think a lot of people do, including myself. I think I share in that, where if I was filling out a bracket, I would seriously have to consider who they play in the first round of the tournament, because I don't know that necessarily if an unfavorable matchup that they couldn't be bounced in that first round.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's almost a wait and see, as we've been in all season long for Texas A&M. But right now, I think they're in a good spot as they look towards March.
I don't know if anybody's, throwing victory parades after beating Oklahoma, but here's head coach Bucky McMillan analyzing their win over the Sooners.
Yeah, I mean, Sean can shoot it, some of these guys have shot it really extremely well. There's a digression to the norm. Where Sean will probably continue to make shots because he's a better shooter than he shot it all season long. So he can do that, man, and we're going to trust him doing that.
Stay with us here on Sports Overtime, and remember, you can watch our show Southeast Sports Plus from 2 to 4 o'clock on the free WKRG Plus app. You can find us on your Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV device. You have a national champion golfer. You've been to a Final Four. You're perennially now in the NCAA tournament. But take me back to when you first started, because these were not the expectations of Ole Miss golf then. What were some of the things that nobody sees? Because we all see, everybody as a sports fan sees the highs, but what were some of those grinding points? You touched on it with recruiting, but maybe things you had to change about practice facilities and or equipment and or recruiting, just some of the nitty gritty of the grind that got you to where you are now.
Yeah, we don't have enough time for that. it was a lot, and I leaned on a lot of mentors of mine in this business to go, and some of the best advice I got was you're not going to tackle all of them at one time. Mm-hmm. And you pick and choose and just come up with a master plan. And we did that with facilities. We had the worst facilities by far in the SEC, and it wasn't close. But I knew I also wasn't going to snap my fingers and all of that was going to change. Right. So we had to put together a master plan. It took about 2.5 years, 3 years. Flash forward, we have 2 NCAA individual champions, which is incredible to even think of, that it's happened in this short a time. We've had some teams make a run. That team last year made a historic run, and we hope that's only the beginning. But yeah, we're 12 years into it. We're still building it, but it started with culture. And I think back to that original group. I'm giving you a long answer to probably a shorter question, but that group helped us sell what my vision, and in turn what I thought our vision of Ole Miss golf should and would be, and they helped recruit those guys here that ultimately got it done on the golf course. But that team last year, man, that's what I told my first team that I had here and members of those squads, man, they were as much a part of our success now is the teams that are actually going out there and doing it.
Absolutely. And Coach, before we let you go, I want to turn our attention to you personally. I know you were a pretty good golfer back in the day. How much golf do you actually get to go out and play now that you coach, and how's the game looking?
Not great. Not great. So I gotta pick and choose my games wisely. I'll get out quite a bit. We have a good group here, and so during the summer I'll get out and play. We have a bunch of good golfers at our Country Club of Oxford here. Mm-hmm. Our football coach is a big golfer, so we went out and got a few holes in the other day. But yeah, during the season, I don't really think about it much. Every now and then, like I said, I think it was last Friday, we got a few holes in. But I'll put those up until, hopefully June 2nd, and then dive back into it. But it's okay. I mean, depends on the day and depends on the game, I guess.
Do you ever personally take on any of your golfers, and I'm sure you guys do short course challenges or anything? Do they challenge you at all? And
before you answer that, Coach, I'm rooting for you because the age dynamic here. Patrick said back in the day we are similarly aged. I graduated in 2007. He's the young buck of the crew. So I personally hope that you answered this by saying I crushed him every single time I challenged him.
I wish, but hell no. I'm smarter than that, And listen, if my old bud is beating any of my guys, we got a problem. However, I can get them in putting.
Okay, I like that. I like that.
If it's anything ball striking, absolutely not. But putting, I'll take them all.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Sports Overtime tonight. Remember, you can watch our show, Southeast Sports Plus, Monday to Friday from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock on the free WKRG Plus app. You can find us on your Apple TV, Roku, or Fire TV device. Good night.